All right, talking about bar graphs today. Okay, there are several important things about a bar graph that we need to talk about. Okay, first of all, you need to write this down. A bar graph is a visual way to represent data. Okay, a bar graph is a visual way to represent data. Okay. Now, a bar graph has several different. Now, the one we got here is this is a double bar graph. Huh? No, you can. It'll obviously be in the notes. And now, it's a double bar graph, but there are essential things with every bar graph that you must have. Okay. First thing is the title. So you put down number 1, title. These are the 4 or 5 essential things that all bar graphs must have. First thing they must have is a title. Okay? All right. First thing is the title. So every bar graph must have a title. So I'm going to go down here and I'll help you out. Okay. Second of all, categories. Okay, the categories in this bar graph are right here. These are your categories. They are the months. January, February, March, and April, and May. Okay? They are the months.
Will the category always be at the very bottom?
There's 2 types of bar graphs, but for most part, yes. They also make a horizontal bar graph that I'll show you a picture of here in a second, but for the most part, we're always going to be dealing with vertical bar graphs where the bars go up and down. And so, yes, they will always be on the bottom of a vertical bar graph. Okay? Number 3 is your intervals or scale. This over here is your interval / scale. Okay? Now, what I mean about having one is that it must be the same throughout. In other words, they have 0 to 5, 5 to 10, 10 to 15, 15 to 20, 25 to 30, 25 to 30, 30 to 35, 35 to 40. What is the scale? What does it increase by each time, Gabby? 5. So the scale is 5. Now, we don't know if that's just regular numbers, or it could be 45,000. It could be 450,000. Could be 4,500. Okay. So usually on a scale, they will put how many units over here. Okay. For example, they may say each unit is 1,000. So when you get here to 5, then that would be 5,000 cups of coffee sold. That would be 10,000, 15, 20 on up the scale. Okay? In this particular case, since there are no numbers given, we have to assume that that's just 1 cup of coffee. So when you get to 5, that's 5 cups of coffee, 10 cups of coffee, 15 cups of coffee, things of that nature. Okay? That's what we have to assume. All right? Maybe, maybe not. Okay? So, that's the third thing that all bar graphs must have. Title, categories, interval, and scale. Okay? The fourth thing all bars must be the same width and each category must have a space between them. Number 5. Okay. Number 5, and I'll show you that's about the bars being the same width and the space here in just a second. Number 5 applies to multiple bars in a graph. Okay? Like this one, double bar graph. Because how many bars are in each category? 2. Okay? So, when there is multiple bars in each category, you must have a key or legend. Okay? A key or a legend. Okay? Now, what that is talking about is here. That is a key or a legend. Okay? This is a key or legend. I don't know. It's something that they've called them since they had maps and everything else. They just called it a legend. Don't know why. Okay? And what the key and the legend does is it tells you what each specific bar represents, what type of category. Okay? We know that it represents January, February, March, April, May. Okay? But what we do know is that the blue bar represents the number of cups of coffee sold downtown. This represents the number of cups of coffee sold at the mall. Okay? And so that's what the legend does. Now, as we visually look at this data, and if we make a conclusion about this bar graph, this is a double bar graph on cups of coffee sold. Now, we don't know where. Okay? Don't know if it's California, Texas, New York, in a certain city. We're assuming it's in one city, probably, because you're looking at downtown or you're looking at a mall. Okay? So obviously, where are the most cups of coffee sold? In the mall. Okay? There's only 1 month. There's only 1 month right here in April. Okay? That the downtown location sold more than the mall location. Okay? Now, Lily, you need to quit doodling, and you need to write all this stuff down, because when I take up the notes here in a second and you don't do well on the quiz that I'm going to give you, then you're going to be at issue. Okay? Now, what's another conclusion you could make about this bar graph? About how many are sold, or what's another conclusion as you look at it, in general, not at one specific part of it, but in general, what's a conclusion you could make about the bar graph? Quite?
How many are sold in a day?
Huh?
How many are sold in a day?
No, we can't make a conclusion about a day because we don't really know. I mean, I guess we could say, okay, they sold 15 in the month of January, so that means they sold about a half a cup a day or a cup every other day. We could say that, but that's not what I'm talking about. Treston. February. And what is unique about January, February? What's the weather like? Cold. Okay? So we're assuming that in the colder months that they sell more coffee. Okay? Now that's not always the case these days because people are, addicted to coffee. And they got to have their Starbucks in the morning to get them awake, whether it's 90 degrees, 105 degrees, or it's 2 degrees. Okay? So that's not necessarily the case, but you can see a trend. You can see a trend right here where it goes up, and then it starts coming down as it gets warmer, regardless of where it is. Okay, unless you're in the southern hemisphere and you're on the south of the equator. Okay, but we're assuming this is America. It's somewhere in America. Okay, logically, as it gets warmer, they should sell less coffee. Okay, if it's just regular old coffee. Okay, now, the other assumption that was made, Tristan said that they sold more coffee in February. Okay, obviously. That's true because why? The bars are higher. Okay, even the ones at the mall are higher than any other time. See right here, the mall is higher than January sales at the downtown is higher than the mall sales that happened in January. Okay, so about how many cups of coffee were sold in February?
40.
No, about how much total cups of coffee were sold in February? Brandon? No, that's not 1,000. I just made that up. But not 40 either. Jesse? 65. About 65 cups of coffee. The reason being, because this is 40 to 41, this is 20 to 25 to 26. Okay, so we could almost probably say 47, or 67, 67. Because you add the two bars up, because the two bars together still represent February, regardless of whether we sold them downtown or whether we sold them at the mall. Okay? Now, the other thing I want to talk about is, you will notice that the width of these bars are about the same. Okay? That's what I was talking about on number 4. Okay? In other words, you don't want to have a bar that looks like this. Okay? Because that gives the illusion that month had a lot more sales in it. Okay? So obviously you don't want to do that. The other thing is this. We want to have spaces between each category. Okay, that's what I was talking about when I said spaces, when I said right down here, each category must have a space between them. Okay, that right there is what I'm talking about right here. Okay, so that gives us an idea of what we've got. Obviously, if we didn't have cups of coffee sold, if we didn't have a title on it, we wouldn't know what to do. Okay? The other thing is this. Over here in our intervals, okay, what I want to make in other words, I don't want my intervals to be this. Let's say I did my intervals and they were 5, 22, 24, 39, 46, 52, 90. You see how they are all different sizes, all different, that type of stuff. We don't want to do that. Okay, there's not a pattern to it. But at the same time, what was the most coffee sold? How many? about a little over 40, right? So would I want to make my scale 20, 40, 60, 80, 100, 120? Would I want to do that? No, because then I would have all these down here, almost all of them would be like right here and below. They'd be all like that. Well, that doesn't give you a very good visual representation. Plus, it's going to be very hard to do one that says 6 in here where I got 20, so I got to do 6. There's 6. Okay? So you don't want to do that either. So you want your scale to be representative of the data that you have, not too big, but at the same time, would I want to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6? You obviously wouldn't want to do that either. Because now you're going to have a graph that's going to have to be as tall as the room to get all your bars on it. Okay? So the intervals are very important as well. All right? Now, so that's a bar graph. Okay? That's a bar graph. I want to look at the next one. The other thing that we're talking about today. Let's see here. Go forward. Now, we talked about just a second ago, Trinity asked me about whether or not you could have it on other than the bottom. Okay? Well, this represents one that is a horizontal bar graph. Same deal. Okay? You still have to have a title. Let me go ahead and cut this one out. All right. Now, all right. Now, this represents student favorite after-school activities and the number of students that do it. Okay? All right. Now, as I said, this is a horizontal bar graph. Now, it is a single bar graph. It is not a double bar graph. So you will see that there's no key or legend. Okay? Now, playing sports, 45 of the students. Talk on the phone, 53. That'd have to be texting these days. Visit with friends, 99. Earn money, 44. Chat online, 66. School clubs, 22. Watch TV, 37. I would highly suggest that's probably a larger number than 37. Okay? Or maybe they need to include in there, watch my tablet. Okay? Probably also not on there is playing games. Yeah, right. Is a favorite after-school activities, not student. All right, now, so that's a bar graph that is horizontal. The categories, okay, here's your categories. Okay, here's your title. Here's your scale or intervals. Okay, what is the intervals here? How much does each line go up? 20 or 10? Okay, so what is this line? Okay, so isn't there lines for every 10 units? So 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100. So the scale is 10 units or 10 students. That's the actual scale. Now, if that line was not there, it was just the dark black lines, then yes, your scale would be 20 students. Okay? Now, let's go to the next one. All right. All right, shh, zip it. Let's read over. All right. This is called a line graph. Okay? It is also called, there are three types of line graphs. Broken, straight, and curved. Okay, there's three types of line graphs. Broken, straight, and curved. This is a broken line graph. Okay? I'm fixing to show you. Okay. Now, this one is a straight line graph. Okay, because there's no breaks in it. This is a broken line graph because there are breaks in it. Goes up, breaks, comes down, breaks, there. Okay. That is a broken line graph. A curved line graph is going to look like this. Okay. This would be a curved line graph. Now, they call this specific one a bell curve. Okay, because it looks similar to a bell. Okay, so those are the three types of line graphs. Line graphs are just like bar graphs. They have titles. You gentlemen need to go back out wherever he came from. I can do that. Line graph is going to have the same 5 things that a bar graph has. It's going to have a title. It's going to have categories. Okay, it's going to have a scale or interval. Okay, the difference is is there is no bars to have the same width or space between them. Okay? If there's two lines, then it has to have a key or legend. Okay, now, let me show you on this one right here. Okay, this is very similar to a bar graph. In other words, if I had a bar that went like this, another bar that goes right there, another bar that goes right there, okay, you would have a bar graph. So basically what a line graph is they've just taken the bars, put a dot right in the middle of the bar, top of it, put dots on each bar, then erase the bars and connect the dots. Okay, that's all they've done. Okay, so that's the difference between a bar and a line graph. There's not really that much of a difference. Okay. Okay, so that's the other type of graph that we're going to obviously talk about today. So you have double bar graphs and bar graphs. You have line graphs, double line graphs. Okay, everybody turn to page, I think it's, no, I thought there was, okay, it's tornado one. I thought I had the newspaper one. Yeah, that's the one that's not there. Mark Rangers, yeah, okay, that's another, I must be thinking of another book. All right, now, so what you're going to do for work tonight is this. We still have, about 15 minutes left in class. For your work, you're going to do 3.2. You're going to go number 2, number 3, number 5, 6, 8, 9, 12 through 14, and 26. Okay? Number 2, number 3, number 5, number 6, number 8, number 9, 12 through 14, and 26. Okay? Now, some of those are constructing bar graphs, some of them are not. Some of them are making conclusions about bar graphs. Okay, I think if I remember right, there's like 3 bar graphs that you have to draw in one line graph. Make sure that you keep track of what they're asking you to do. I remember in this lesson in the other class, they were supposed to do a line graph and they did a bar graph, and so obviously we had to count it wrong. So if the directions tell you to do a line graph, then you do a line graph. Okay, let me look here. Okay, number 12 is the double line graph. Okay, that's the one you've got to do a double line graph on that a lot of people did a double bar graph on, and they end up getting it wrong because they did the bar graph instead of a line graph.
Is the line graph
The line graph is this right here. It's going to be a broken line graph. Looks similar to that, or it may be a straight line graph. You won't have to do a bell curve. Huh? And you do the same thing you did with the boxes. So you have a bar graph. We would go like this up to the bar that represents a certain number. Well, instead of a bar graph, you're going to do a line graph. So you still